An article carried by The Economist magazine in 2009 described environmentally induced migration as a case of permanent emergency. It went on to describe a pastoral community living in the drought-affected region of northern Kenya as stuck in a frantic drift from one dry place to another as the region became hotter and drier and their numbers increased, while stocks of water, fodder, and livestock declined. Although numbers were hard to determine, environmental degradation was the cause of large-scale population mobility. As large regions of the world become unviable, a pauperized mass would move towards the few lifeboat areas. Such a scenario was described as an evolving security risk since it would give rise to inter-community conflicts over scarce survival goods, water, pastures, shelter, food, between the mobile groups and the already present population in the habitable areas. As the most recent drought displacement and conflict unfolds in the Horn of Africa, little seems to have changed for local populations experiencing life-threatening circumstances. Climate-related displacements, recognized by the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, numbered 30.7 million in 2020 alone. The vast majority of all disaster-related displacement was in the context of weather and climate hazards, mainly floods and storms, and to a lesser extent due to wildfires, landslides, extreme temperatures, and drought. Although a large number of people are displaced, they are likely to be a population that is internally displaced, requiring temporary relocation and resettlement within their own country. The responsibility of social protection in this case is more directly dependent on the laws, capacities, and resources of national governments. Predictions about the causes and extent of future human mobility is based on the understanding that multiple interlocking crises are likely to occur more frequently. According to the World Bank's Groundswell report, climate change alone may contribute to the movement of 260 million people within their own countries by 2050. In some cases, green energy transition policies may add to concerns around environmental collapse in countries with critical minerals and high rates of rural, urban, and overseas migration. Lithium deposits in the Potosi region of Bolivia, that is also home to its indigenous peoples, is a case in point in the complex interactions between energy policy shifts and the rights of local communities. In 2016, when Bolivia had declared a state of national emergency as El Niño droughts destroyed harvests and cattle ranches throughout the country, environmental campaigners highlighted the role of the mining industry, large plantation, and congested cities in contaminating the nation's stressed water resources. Deteriorating relations between large farmers and indigenous people who are competing over water worsened during slow onset hazards. In 2022, devastating floods in Pakistan led to the forcible displacement of 7.6 million people. Among these were the Afghan refugees living in the worst disaster-affected provinces. In 2023, in a sudden order, Pakistan asked an estimated 1.7 million Afghan asylum seekers to leave the country or face deportation as tension escalated between the two countries. Massive floods in Bangladesh created unlivable conditions in the crowded and unstable Cox's Bazar refugee camps hosting Rohingya communities from Myanmar. Refusal of Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand to accept Rohingyas after 2020 has reduced the possible places for the community to seek refuge. Understanding of climate mobilities require complex historical and contextual knowledge to understand how survival and adaptation trajectories are taking shape. Policy documents, in contrast, are establishing certainty through aggregation of data and conversion of the extent of risk, loss, damage, exposure, and adaptation into uniform metrics. The thrust in the latter case appears to increase the monitoring and regulation of migrant flows to ease the logjams at borders and destinations, while persuading governments to create protective nets for at-risk mobile groups. In addition to these efforts, recentering justice and voice, dissemination of science curbing misinformation, collaboration across local, national, and international borders, attending to migrant voice and local specificities, and a more accountable state is required to create responsive societies, legal social protection for mobile groups in situ, at transit, intermediate locations, and at destinations.